these notes to really do justice to the deft use of lots of language, which there really was. I'm going to go through SMART, first of all, just highlighting lots and lots of different examples of things which were done really, really well. I'm then going to go through a phase where I look at parts of the language where we can improve together. And I'm going to end with just all sorts of other things which didn't quite fit to a category, but I think is really worth mentioning because they were very good. SMART, S, the simile. The simile is a comparison. It is, but I would say it's usually a comparison where you're saying one thing is like another. And I think it was Helena said something along, she was a comparison with, it's like every single step on our journey. It's just a very simple image that came across. There were very few similes which were used, and what I'd like to suggest to people is that for future speeches and preparing, try and use the word like. See if you can incorporate the word like into your speech, and it will naturally lead you using similes. Metaphors. Metaphors are visual, using words to create a visual impact, and there were some great metaphors. Our baby, I think Annie said our baby, I missed the next word, our baby was born. You talk about your project. There was Helena, famous as a party animal. I can imagine this, just having fun at the party, this wild side of someone. Busy with our long task list. It just painted this picture of we've just drudged down by this long list of things to do. And then part of that, which who was this? I think it was Helena went, it just makes you want to keep going, run, run, run as you run through your task list. You just had this image of just drudgery came along, of slowness. I'll move on to alliteration. I had simple but special task, the S, simple but special, again from Helena. Smart and seamless from Steve. Chaotic city from Kwokwan. And my few friends, that F worked very well. Rhyme, rhythm. We had very little rhyme, actually. And that we did have this idea from Albert, easing feelings, which I kind of felt had this easing feeling, had this kind of rhyme quality to it, which I thought was great. So I've then expanded rhyme into rhythm. And Vernon was a very good example, actually, of using variety in his rhythm. He was sometimes quite fast when he spoke, and sometimes just chose the exact words that he wanted to highlight, and it flowed. The rhythm was very good, it flowed well. The T, triads. There's quite a few triads used, so I thought it was done very well. We had Vernon, unbreakable, thermal, Pyrex glass, which to come up with one when you're on the table topic is very good. We had, Steve was the menu, the special of the day, the promotions. We had, again, it's repeating, Helena with run, run, run. We had, I don't know if it was Marcus or Daniel, I didn't write down, but it was to make something more interesting, more something else, and more motivating. There was another triad, there were three, so it was very good. Now, I have deliberately left off one person from all of this, which is Abraham, because his speech was just littered with example after example of most of these categories. And maybe I'm putting him on the spot now, but I'd actually suggest, if it's possible for his speech, if it's written down and typed out, if it's made available, and people can actually, in their own time, go through, just try and highlight the act of going through, like it's a piece of homework, going through. That will really, really help find, yeah, there's a good example of the simile, there's a metaphor. His use of adjectives was just excellent. Really just painted the picture, and that is the essence of a metaphor. You're using words to paint. Adjectives are a great way to do that. Deft is a good example of an adjective. Adjective that's highly flexible. Deftly is an adverb, a word which describes a verb. Adjective, a word which describes a noun. And his use of adverbs and adjectives, I'm just going to say a few, but literally I just went, and I didn't even get half of it. I was just like, dilapidated walls, cheap bricks, rusty metal. I love this savaged, that was great image. Deftly and diligently, 2 adverbs. Also, it's got the, what's the D's? Deftly and diligently is alliteration. We have the astronomical expenses, stung by the reply, slamming the frail wooden door, struggled to extricate himself, looked dolefully, just image after image after image. You were bombarded with images. It was just great. Okay, so I'm now going to move on to some areas which are for us all to learn from. I realise there's also a linguistic factor here, the cultural factor, and the endings of lots of words are being lost sometimes. So sometimes on plurals, there are just the S's occasionally of being missed off, but I realise it's a kind of a cultural linguistic difference. Some of the plurals, it's men, and someone said men and then ladies, but I don't know why, but in English we always say ladies and gentlemen. It's just a cultural thing. Ladies first. We have plurals. Congratulations. It's always plural. Okay, that's it on plural. Oh, a pair of scissors. This is a very weird word. Do we have the scissors? Oh, sorry. Do we have the pair of scissors? No. Okay, you know a pair of scissors is 2 things like this. That is a scissor. That is a scissor. The 2 together is a pair of scissors. So the whole item by itself is 1 pair of scissors. Weird, but true. We have verb use. We're very often using the present tense, but the rest of the context should be either future or past. So there's just a number of the verbs. What motivated me? As soon as I said, we fell in love and married. Singapore has given me the opportunity. I hope that we now know. Sometimes it was future, sometimes it was past in these examples. Plurals, endings, another word, device and confidence. It's just endings. Pronouns. Pronouns are the little words by, with, from, at, to, which often you cannot translate from one language to another, and so you just have to learn in different languages, and so I speak a few languages, and sometimes I just find it impossible to just learn the pronouns. So I'm just going to say some examples of pronouns. Where have I got pronouns? To share with you. P, there was other pronouns. The last thing I would like to touch upon. Upon goes with it. There were others, but it's there. Okay, quote versus quotation. Quotation is a noun. To be or not to be is a quotation. I am now going to quote Shakespeare. To be or not to be is the verb. I'm going to quote, verb, the noun, a quotation. The good versus well. It was only said, I think, a couple of times. Good is an adjective, so a good boy, a good speech. It describes a speech. Well is an adverb, and it describes a verb. So, I spoke well. I ran well. I analysed well. That. Where's the word that? The word that is not used. In fact, Daniel used the word very well a number of times. When you want to use a word that has a precise meaning, you can draw attention using the word that for it. You can also take it out. If you're referring to something in a previous sentence, you can use the word that. And it is the most recent thing that you referred to. I think Daniel used it quite correctly in that sense. And sometimes I wasn't sure what people were referring to, because I realised from the context they're referring to something which is maybe 2 references back, not the most recent one. So it's just a slight confusion to the English, the way that the English language works. Did that make sense, that point? Okay. Idiom. That means language, words which is specific to a culture, which may not make sense, but that's just how it's done. So there were lots of good uses of idiom. Okay, it is raining heavily. So I've forgotten how it was said. You say wet weather. You can't, to say rainy weather, I'm not sure. I say not raining weather. You can't say raining weather, so it's wet weather or rainy, or it is raining heavily. Idiom was eyes. Yeah, we fell in love. That is just a classic phrase. Actually, there's quite a few examples of it used well. A party animal is also an idiom. Okay. Yep, let's now move to, want to end on some positive things as well. So we've got word of the day, deft, deftly. There was a lot of use of the words. I really appreciate it. We had Alicia, Daniel, Billy, Peter, Kokkang, Abraham used it at least a couple of times, as I think did there's one other person whose name I didn't know. Alicia did as well. So that was, I think, above average use of the word of the day, which to use it spontaneously, I think is great. It's really good. I'm now going to end with just a spattering of phrases that were just used, which I just think is really worth saying. I really liked Alicia's use of language. She's very concise and to the point, but very rich and dense in information. All qualified for voting except. It was just perfectly phrased. There is, I think there was someone said, may I invite, which is tricky. Some people say, can I invite? Well, I don't know, can you? Because if you lost your voice, if you've got a sore throat, because then you can or you cannot. May I invite, it's asking the audience for permission, and that's what the use of the word. And idiomatically, may I invite is the right thing to say. So I've just got ticks everywhere. A chance to approach her by Jenny. Annabelle, I know she's gone, which you have enumerated, great word. A tinge of nervousness, that was great. Jenny, join me at the lectern, that was perfect. Alicia, tantalized our senses. Steve, hunger for wealth and success, that's a metaphor, that's great. Helena, time pursuers, time followers. That's also an example as well of a neologism. New word. There was no real word as time pursuer, but she just invented it, if you like, so, which is great. There was another neologism someone used, wireage. Is that Iris? Wireage? I've never heard the word before, maybe it exists, but I understood what it meant straight away. So if it's not a word, everyone understood it, I think, and it works as a neologism, new word. No longer tied to our desks was just a great image by Marcus, another one by Marcus. He put his iPad within reach, so you've had one, he can reach it with one hand, or the other hand is turning off the alarm clock. I can't quite remember, but it was great. There's a nice balance to it as well, just like the action was unbalanced, the words were balanced. It's a nice counterpoint, a nice opposite. Another opposite was you cannot lose heat, cannot lose cold. And I will end with a quotation from Marcus, which is true not just about the device he was talking about, but is also true about our projects and our journey through Toastmasters. While exploring the device, you are actually exploring yourself. Thank you very much.